as parliamentarians return to work. A new poll from Leger today shows the Conservatives are the top choice of Canadians. The Tories come in at 34%. It's an increase of 8% over a post-election poll from September of last year. The Liberals have 28% support. That's a decrease of 5%. The New Democrats, meantime, have gained 5% over last year with 23%. Now, the numbers that we're showing you here are Canadians' choice for prime ministers. You can see there Justin Trudeau at 24%, Pierre Poilievre at 21%, and Jagmeet Singh at 17%. So with Parliament coming back now, we will see sort of where things land there. I want to bring in Tom Mulcair, CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader, into this conversation and sort of what your impressions are going to be. Tom, as of course you get a different vantage point than from where you were when you were in Parliament.
Good to be with you, Angie. Sure do. And it's interesting to see how the games are going to be played, and they're just starting now. Now, of course, Prime Minister of a G7 country, Mr. Trudeau has every right to be in New York for the opening of the United Nations session. And that's coming off, of course, his visit to the Queen's funeral. Of course, he had to be there for that. But he's also making sure that the message is clear to Pierre Poilievre that he, Justin Trudeau, is indeed the Prime Minister, and he gets to set the agenda. He'll show up on Thursday. Poilievre doesn't even get to fight with Chrystia Freeland, who rather famously took a shot at his economic knowledge during his campaign, because she's going to be attending Bill, the former Liberal leader, funeral. And I'm sorry, the name's escaped me right now. But it's an interesting time, because Trudeau is indeed showing Poilievre that he is the one setting the tone. He'll show up for question period on Thursday, and Poilievre's just going to have to cool his heels.
The big topic, the big issue, of course, and this, of course, I think she's going to be attending Bill Graham's funeral.
Bill Graham, sorry, I apologize.
Chrystia Freeland. But the big issue that we've seen right across the board from all three parties is affordability. And where things are going to be at. We heard from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh just a little while ago saying, the NDPs are touting, or tooting the horn there, saying, you're seeing these bills come forward with regards to affordability, rental protection, dental care, et cetera, because the NDP called the government to action. What are you going to be looking for now from all three parties? Mark Holland's saying now's the time to work together, not against each other, and we need to do this for Canadians.
Great line from Mark Holland, perfect tone. But at the same time, there's obviously a lot of game playing that's going to be going on. The Liberals are dividing this up into separate bills. They'll be presenting each of those bills before Parliament, keeping their fingers crossed that somehow the Conservatives will decide to vote against any one of them. On their end, the Conservatives will be working hard to come up with opposition day resolutions and motions before the House, hoping that the Liberals will vote against something that they can show to the voting public and say, aha, the Liberals voted against this. So there is a lot of positioning going on right now. It's going to take a while for this to settle down. You saw it in the polling numbers. You've got a poll that shows the Conservatives substantially ahead of the Liberals, and yet Trudeau with a fair lead over Poilievre as the best Prime Minister. So that's an indication that things are in a state of flux. The Conservatives are going to do their best to show that they've got everything it takes to form a government, and Trudeau's going to be doing everything that he can to slow things down, to make sure that people understand that if he decides that the election's only in a few years, then the election's only in a few years, because that could be the length of the deal that he's got with Jagmeet Singh.
Having said that, and looking at the NDP Liberal alliance, is there at any point a concern on your end that we could go earlier, that there could be a no confidence vote, that there could be any, a different kind of alliance, one where, perhaps with the Conservatives and the NDP, or, whatnot? I want to bring the Bloc Québécois into this as well, because they certainly play an important factor.
Yeah, but the only one that can actually bring down the government is Singh if he walks away from the deal. And we tend to forget that Trudeau at any time can go and see Governor General Mary Simon and ask for a writ and call an election. I don't see him doing that right now. I think that they've got a well-oiled plan to start showing the limitations of Pierre Poilievre's ability to actually run the country. He's run a magnificent campaign for leadership, but there's a big difference between that and running this massive G7 country. And Mr. Poilievre has limited experience, as did Mr. Trudeau when he came in, but he was surrounded by a very strong group. Is Poilievre going to be able to project forward his ability to actually run the place? He's probably not going to be opposed to having a couple of years to show that he's got what it takes, Angie, because he's got to convince Canadians that he can actually run the government. I think that's one of Trudeau's weakest points, by the way. He did a tremendous job when he was in London. He's going to do, I'm convinced, a very good job today in New York. But the actual running of the government is his Achilles heel. So that's an opportunity for Poilievre to say, look, yeah, I'm relatively new to the game and I don't have that deep experience, but look at the team that I've got and look who I've recruited, assuming that he will be able to do that, some top-notch people to run the government of Canada. It is Trudeau's weakest point, and it could be something that becomes a real issue in the next election campaign.
It will indeed, and we'll be watching it, covering it all. Tom Mulcair, always a pleasure, CTV News political commentator and former NDP leader. Take care.